Hi, my name is Barbara Njau. I am one of the co-founders of Behati Books, which is a digital publishing company that promotes, publishes, and sells African literature that is written by African authors. Basically, we find cool people, interesting people who have very cool stories to tell. And the only thing that's similar amongst them all is they happen to be either African, so from Africa, or they happen to be like me from Africa, like Kenya, but they live in the UK, US, Australia, in the diaspora. But that's the only thing that they have in common. The rest is that they have just really cool stories to tell. They have romance stories, they have sci fi stories, they just have something cool to say. And what we do is we tell them, write it all down and we'll help you edit it and promote it and let everybody in the digital world know. So everybody on social media, on people who use any computer or Google, they'll know via Behati Books. So that's a bit about what I do. It's not something that perhaps I knew I wanted to do from when I was a little kid. It kind of emerged organically. So, for about 3 years before I started this, I used to work as a journalist for a relatively large newspaper. I've always been a bookworm, so I've always loved good stories, especially since I was a kid. I just loved things that captured my imagination. And so, when I used to work as a journalist, I used to cover Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, and I used to travel loads. And my boyfriend at the time, and still my current boyfriend, said, Barbara, you're constantly on the go, you're constantly traveling. Instead of carrying all these large books with you, why don't you try to use this device called a Kindle, where instead of having to limit yourself to maybe 3 or 4 books, you can carry a library of 1,000 books. And so when he got me this Kindle, and everything is kind of, you can read it online and you can download and just start reading. So, for example, this is one of our books called Fool's Gold by Marco Ferri. It just totally revolutionized how I see things. I was like, wow, I can't believe you can have a complete library of all the different books and something that weighs lighter than a smartphone. So this is an iPhone 5. It's actually heavier than a Kindle. And so it totally changed how I see books and totally changed how I read. But then one of the things that I found was that it became quite frustrating to find exactly the books that I was looking for. So I became really interested in reading just really cool fiction stories by African authors. I went through Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's Half of a Yellow Sun. I read Chinua Achebe, Ngugi wa Thiong'o. But beyond that, it was really difficult. And every time I finished reading, so when you scroll to the end of your Kindle, Amazon usually suggests books that are related. And what I found is the books that tended to be suggested by Amazon were things on child soldiers, war, poverty, and so on. And I said, well, no, I don't want to read about poverty. I don't want to read about blood diamonds. I just want to read a really cool fiction story. Why is Amazon not showing this to me? And so I kept on kind of having that frustration. And after a while, I thought, well, actually, instead of complaining, why don't I do something about it? Why don't I, create something where it can be a go-to place for people who are like me, who just want to find really cool stories that they want to read, written by African authors. They can go and read that. And so me and the other co-founder called Kuda Kwashe Kamupira, who I knew from secondary school, we started Behati Books as a result of that. So essentially Behati Books, if you go on the website, www.behatibooks.com, it basically is this online marketplace, right? So you go, you find our authors, you read lots of different stories. If you want to read, something like Fool's Gold, he's from Zimbabwe, Marco Ferri, you can read that. It's quite satirical, it makes fun of like the government and so on. But then if you want to read Egyptian fiction, we have an author called Muret. If you want to read Kenyan fiction, we've got lots of authors from Kenya. And so essentially that's kind of how it emerged, kind of what I want to do. The more I did Behati Books, the more I enjoyed it, and I thought, okay, I'm really happy to do this for now. And so, yeah, it's just been an exciting journey. Given that Behati Books is really young, we started at the end of August last year, and we focused on working on Behati Books full time just at the start of this year, so in January. Running a startup can be just really hectic. It's very difficult to predict what's going to happen every single day. We obviously work very hard to structure our days. So we come into the office, so we work in a shared office space at London Bridge. We come in at 9 in the morning. We tend to try and leave at 6 or 7 p.m. We start off by kind of having a kind of little meeting. or we start off, catching up on all the emails that we get, because obviously we're working with people in America, we're working with people in just several different time zones. Then a significant chunk of my time is also spent on just editing stories. We also have a great editor that's based in the US called Femi, who helps us a lot when we're kind of getting a lot of manuscripts. And so once Femi reads that, I can then dedicate a lot of time just reading and making sure that the manuscript looks good before we publish. We also spend a lot of time now promoting our authors' work, especially on social media, contacting news stations to, get them some kind of radio play. And the other hand as well, we want to start working with lots of different event companies. So one of our partners and one of the events that we're really proud of being part of was Africa Writes, and that was in July this year. Our day really varies though. I mean, one day can be this, another day we can have just lots of meetings. So I'll try and schedule all of my meetings in one day, and then just kind of constantly on the go. And so a typical day can be very untypical in that sense. Managing my time in a very unstructured environment. So also one of the things when you run a startup, which is very different to working in a corporate business, which has been existing for 10, 15, 20, 100 years, is that when you work in a job, you're brought in for a really specific task and you just know exactly what you're going to do every single day. Whilst when you're running a startup, because you're a much smaller team, you tend to wear several hats all at one go. So, I'll wear the social media hat, I'll wear editor's hat, I'll wear business development hat, plus, anything else as and when it comes up. And so I think the hardest part is just juggling all of that. And sometimes it just feels like there's not enough hours in the day. But again, I still enjoy it, but I suppose that can be the really toughest part of it. It's all about just taking the initiative. I mean, if you want to get into African literature, if you want to be another partner in this space who wants to publish really cool African authors and market them digitally, start an online blog, reach out to people, go out and message them on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. This is not a crowded space. There is so much to be done when it comes to representing African writers and representing writers of colour when it comes to publishing. And so for us, we see this as such an unsaturated space. We love meeting new startups, new partners and potential partners who we can work with. And so if you want to do what we do, go out, start a website, go for it, and get in touch with us as well, because we're more than happy to provide support as and when we think is relevant. You can find out more about Behati Books directly on our website, so www.behatibooks.com. You can also go on our social media on Instagram, Facebook or Twitter. It's Behati Books. So on Instagram it's Behati_books, but on Facebook and Twitter it's Behati Books, BAHATIBOOKS. And you can also get in touch with us, info@behatibooks.com, if you have any questions, and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.